All right, good evening, everybody. We are sitting here getting ready to start our live Q&A with Mr. David Sears of SOF Studios, talking about HR World's Elite. My name is Shane Bell. I am one of the owners and directors of Urgent Fury and a proud supporter of HR World's Elite. We got the chat ready. It's got a slow mode set on it, so you guys know you can't type more than every 100 seconds. It'll tell you to type again. We don't want anybody's questions to get buried in the mess. We've got a couple of moderators in here, so if you act a fool, we're going to slap you down. And of course, if you got good questions, we're going to be passing them on to David as we talk about HR for the next however many hours it takes for David to get questions asked or until he passes out. We'll also be taking some breaks here and there, so while we put those breaks up, of course, we'll throw in a commercial here or there to help pay the bills here at Urgent Fury. So everybody get to your seats, turn off your cell phones, turn off your pagers, tell your girlfriend to get busy, whatever you need to do, and let's bring Mr. Sears into the mix. And welcome, Mr. David Sears. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for asking, and thanks for having me.
It can't be any more of an honor to have you with me, sir. You are believe it or not, you are the foundation. You created the foundation that Urgent Fury was built on. So we are more than happy to provide this opportunity for the community to talk with you via the chat and ask their questions that they've been chomping on, waiting to get that right answer before they hit their pledge on Kickstarter, or if they haven't done so, if they've done so already, increasing to that $10,000 pledge. We're waiting for someone to do that after this. Maybe we can get that tonight.
Oh yeah, that's an excellent pledge. There's nothing like, hey, join us for the most dangerous trip of your life that you may or may not come back from, to really motivate people to pledge a lot of money. I love it.
I'm sure if you talk to Patrick, Commander Fury from of Urgent Fury, he'll tell you the most dangerous trip is to ride with me in the car. So I assume
that is not the pledge. That is not the pledge we're offering at that tier. Sorry.
So,
I hear you.
So like I said in the intro, for all you guys that are watching, we already have 126 and growing live viewers in the chat. There's about a 100-second delay between your post, and that's to keep everybody calm down so you can get your questions in. And let me know in the chat if everything is sounding good. We'll get a sound check.
You want me to give you a sound check?
Actually, I'm just waiting to hear from the chat if everybody sounds good. John, yep, looks like we're good. All right, guys, let's get the questions in. David, if you want to start with any intros out of the gate, maybe talk about the PlayStation Warrior pledge and how close we're at to that. I can actually check that for you right now.
Yeah, we should be pretty close.
We need
PlayStation Warrior.
101 more is what we need.
Yeah, PlayStation Warrior was, we originally launched the Kickstarter campaign talking about how we were going to do the PC version first and an Xbox One and a PlayStation 4 version were potential options. But I knew the original SOCOM community was going to gravitate towards Sony hardware.
No.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It works. It's awesome. So, over, like any first-time Kickstarter sort of entrepreneurs or adventurers, we were learning a lot every day. And it became very obvious, even though I basically implied that we were doing a PlayStation 4 version, it wasn't really clear to all of the potential backers. So we introduced the PlayStation Warrior tier, where I think for $50, if we have 500 backers at that tier level, or that pledge level, we'll definitely guarantee to make a PlayStation 4 version available when H-Hour launches. And what this really means is, because we're only asking for the money to make a sort of kick-ass AAA demo or prototype, really, to show VCs and publishers, that we're assuming the additional risk, and I don't want to say burden because it's all part of the process, but we'll have to secure the rest of the funding through other channels to make sure that the PlayStation 4 version happens. And fan response was immediate. People kind of got really excited, which was great to see. And we're really close to maxing out that tier, so I have no doubt that we are committed to making a PlayStation 4 version of H-Hour happen.
Now, I've got an interesting point. A couple of guys have asked me this, and I've told them, of course, to go to the forums and post, that there's over, when I last checked, now this was a few days ago, there were over 211 pledges that were above that $50 mark. Are you counting that towards the 500 technically, or?
Well, technically yes, and technically no. This pledge tier was introduced to make it really clear to fans of PlayStation hardware that we wanted to gauge their interest, and if there was enough interest, we would commit to making a PlayStation 4 version. But there's a manage your pledge button on Kickstarter, and you're free to pledge any amount above $50 that you want, and then you can just signify that you support a PlayStation 4 version by setting your reward tier to PlayStation Warrior. At the same time, of course, we're honoring all of the rewards up through the amount of pledge that you make. So if you want that super dangerous trip of a lifetime for 10 grand, then you can also just leave your mark as PlayStation Warrior. You'll get the trip and the hoodie and the poster and the soundtrack and all the other stuff.
So there you got it, folks. A straight answer on, because I know that's another question is, what if I want to put more? You choose that pledge level, but depending on how much money you put in, they're going to take the time to go look and make sure you get everything that you would have gotten if you, say, put in the 175. So hit that $50 button, go manage, and hit that $50 button so that you can show that you want that PS4. Like we said, there's 101 more spots on that, and that guarantees the PS4 version, which, for you guys that don't know, I did play the PS4 last week. The new controller is awesome. I actually played Blacklight Retribution, a shooter on it, and I can only imagine what H-Hour is going to be like. But we've already got our first question, so are you ready for this one?
That depends. I'll let you know in about 10 seconds.
So Mr. Will684 asks, I hope to see fast SOCOM 1/2 movement and stray speed with accurate guns. Will we see that in H-Hour?
Yeah and yes. The key difference, we're really dedicated to recreating that sort of magical balance that SOCOM 1 and SOCOM 2 had in terms of control and core gameplay. So certainly, one of the big differences, though, is you're going to immediately notice that we're pushing a lot more pixels. I believe SOCOM, early SOCOM PS2 animation was downsampled to about 15 frames a second. So now we can run at much higher sample rates. So expect a lot more organic animation in terms of quality, but gameplay is king. So based on player input, we will still continue to interrupt animation so that responsiveness is there. You're not going to be controlling land yachts instead of characters. As far, yeah, I know I get that question a lot, and I don't mind answering it. But it's like, of course, I thought that was integral to the success of why people loved the gameplay so much for those games. And as far as the guns go, well, guns have varying degrees of accuracy, and it's really more about you choosing when and where to take your shot. The ballistics model for SOCOM 1 and 2 was fairly elaborate, fairly complete. There were parameters for every kind of player movement, stance, individual weapon, physical characteristics. All that was calculated, and it went into creating the personality of every weapon. Now, this time we're taking the same approach, but the difference is, instead of me having to comb the internet and read dusty old books and manuals about ballistics data and watch all these horrifying videos of pigs being shot over and over to understand cavitation and that kind of stuff, which of course we never actually included in SOCOM because it was just a bunch of triangles. Now I get to work with an accomplished weapons engineer who knows all this stuff like the back of his hand, and special forces operators who, if I say, if I ask the dumb question like, well, what's this pistol really do? How does this feel? they put the pistol in my hand and I go shoot it until it's part of my muscle memory.
Right.
So I think you'll see the same kind of accuracy and accuracy penalties that you saw in the early SOCOMs, but at the same time, I think personalities are going to be a little more finely tuned towards having the right personality as opposed to that sort of, crazy personality I just invented, which was in part derived from, what we know about guns, because Hollywood tells us this is
Right.
the way guns are. So yeah.
So
it's
I can turn my
yes.
pistol to the side?
Yeah, and shoot one-handed, bang, 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 yo. Anyway, no, you're not going to be able to do that. Sorry.
Okay, so good answer, and it's interesting because I carried a 9mm as a firefighter in the Navy, ironically. So it's good that you're actually holding the gun and shooting it and learning this time instead of having to, because you didn't really have the
Sure.
internet to really work with like we did now back with SOCOM 1.
Yeah, you'd be surprised where I found data. I did get to shoot a couple of times, but nowhere. It's ridiculous the ease of access I have. I have to firearms now and advanced weapons training. And that's something, our consultants were excellent on SOCOM. I don't want to disparage their contributions in any way, but they also had day jobs and they were our
Right.
consultants. And, now these guys are on my team. So, it's entirely reasonable to, if I'm not at my desk, I'm probably going to be at the range. Awesome.
Awesome. I will agree with that. So here's a very straightforward question, and I'm sure we're going to hear this a lot. Will there be dedicated servers in HR?
That is certainly our intention. There are too many benefits to having dedicated servers, and the way we want to present sort of a lobby architecture, old school style with a modern wrapper. We need it. We need geolocational servers around the world so that we can minimize lag on separate continents. Of course, people are still going to be free to play internationally because the sorts of friendships that you make in a game like H-Hour and SOCOM before it, they really don't know international boundaries, and we're all about that.
Fantastic, and I heard that buzzword, lobby.
Yeah, lobbies. Wow. It's sort of weird. I think I've said somewhere before, lobbies weren't my original idea.
Really?
Seth Luisi said, well, I want it to feel like this, and, we need lobbies. And I'm like, dude, what the hell lobby? I was like, what? I mean, it was like he could have come to me at about the same time and said, I need you to design, this Tesla device. And you're going to need, to know string theory and theoretical physics and all this stuff. And I would have been like, what? But like any other design problem, I just analyzed it, I talked with him a bit, and then I designed it. And afterwards, it was like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, that's the way to do it. And millions and millions of players loved it. I love it because. Not to say anything negative about, our competitors, because they're hugely successful at what they do, but I very often feel like I'm in some sort of matchmaking purgatory, and I'm surrounded by fog, and I don't know if there's anyone else on the whole planet playing the same game with me,
Right.
because, what I want is pretty straightforward. I would like to play now. So what we're doing is we're bringing back lobbies which let you, very quickly identify where all the action is, search for the kinds of games that you want. But I think what's really cool, and people can always use the old default list format if they want. It works. But what I think is awesome, just like the internet's come a long way in 10 years, so have ways of presenting information, data. And we're looking at ways of using motion graphics and infographics to make finding the kind of game you want really easy and kind of a cool experience. So, check out. Some games have started doing this already. I think Need for Speed started with a really cool, hey, your interface is 3D kind of experience, and we can take that a bit farther. Patrick Clare's work is definitely inspirational. He did the Stuxnet video and a lot of really cool stuff. But motion graphics and infographics is, it's the future here now. So we're gonna be embracing that as part of our, sort of interface technology. But nobody should worry if you want to go old school. making a list that you can scroll, that's pretty easy. So, in fact, that's the way it's going to look for a while before we get around to making it really pretty.
Gotcha. All right. So I've seen this a lot on the forums. Armor and encumbrance, is it going to be a definite part of the game?
Yeah. Wow. This is another one of those things.
Is there a right answer?
Of course, there's always a right answer, but usually that answer gets you burned at the stake. So I'm not going to give an easy answer. What I'm gonna say is, just like everything else that the community is particularly passionate about, we're gonna have directed, moderated by me and our community manager forums where we focus on specific design issues like encumbrance. Personally, as a game designer and director, I'm pretty sure the system for encumbrance and armor that I'm proposing to use, and I'll present to the community for dissection or vivisection, is going to work, and people are going to really love it, and it'll set a new standard for the way encumbrance is handled in military shooters. And I sort of reserve the right to attempt a design at something like this, but one thing this whole Kickstarter experience has taught me, crowdsourcing isn't just for funding. Crowdsourcing is for maximizing, a good idea and sort of evolving it very quickly into an amazing set of ideas, that the entire group mind finds a consensus on and will embrace because they were part of it. I mean, the processing power, the creative power of the fans is staggering. It's orders of magnitude more than any one game designer can do, and I highly, in spite of it being sort of an emotional roller coaster, I highly recommend it to all my design peers who are able to engage with their communities or their target audiences. These guys spend more time thinking about your game collectively than you can in a lifetime. So encumbrance and armor is one of those things that will be crowdsourced. And the findings will be very interesting. I think it's going to be, I'll probably propose something like this as a GDC talk.
Right.
It's not, and I want to be clear, and I've totally hijacked this whole show now, and I'm just going to keep talking.
It's your show, and I do have the next question queued, and I don't want to interrupt you because you're on a roll.
Well, no, I'm on a rant, and that's kind of what I do.
You and David Jaffe are my new best friends. I love Jaffe.
Yeah, what a nut. It's awesome. Anyway, what I was going to say is, and I've already forgotten. I've totally forgotten. What
you were talking. You're going to follow up on that at GDC. That sums up where you were going with that.
Yeah, pretty much. It's this experience is incredible because for essentially the last 22 years, I've been allowed to talk to the press and the community. The press more so, right? Because it's like a known quantity,
right.
And there are, you have handlers and managers, and I always say I love all the marketing and PR people I've worked with, and they know I love them. But as a game designer, sometimes you just want to step into the nuclear blast furnace of the public eye and ask people, what do you think about this? Because, I've been thinking about it for the last month. My instinct tells me it's good. What does yours say? So, this is unprecedented for me. So I'm enjoying it, and it's also a little terrifying.
I think you're going to be all right. I'm telling you.
Well, I hope so. So anyway, encumbrance, it's basically up to the community. And,
gotcha.
I'll just use my experience and, my experience designing shooters as sort of a lens for that. But,
right.
But basically, it's really up to you guys.
All right. So our next question, it's another interesting question because it has to do with vehicles, and I know you've actually been asked this quite a bit, even in the Reddit this past weekend. Will H hour ever get to a point, maybe in a sequel, where there are vehicles? And I'll preface that with, you already mentioned that there are going to be vehicles in the, I guess cinematics is the right term for it, as part of the campaign, but not like, I guess it was SOCOM 3 where everybody had convoy is a good example.
Yeah, yeah, good, good. Nice design, really. Um, for I think what people should understand is we are an independent studio, which means we don't have infinite time and infinite money. So our business model calls for making the most perfect, exquisite multiplayer experience that we can as our first release, followed by a single player campaign. And in both of those, there will be not cinematic use of vehicles. To be more precise, I would call it parallel animated events.
Okay.
So it's like there's nothing canned about it. Um, vehicles were a part of SOCOM from the early days, going all the way back to SOCOM 1. But anybody who fought the Hind, I think, knows that we really struggled to get that thing to work at all. I mean, if you didn't have an M203, forget about it. Or if you ran out of rounds, whatever. It's easier to handle vehicles now. Now, I think maybe the question is really trying to get at, will I be able to drive vehicles, ride vehicles, fly vehicles, and the answer is initially no. It's a huge expense. It's a lot to get right. We're going for a fairly authentic experience, fun but authentic. And pretty much what happens when you have vehicles in a game like H-Hour is everyone starts treating them as dump trucks right away, and just trying to run over as many people as you can. And I'm not taking any away from that particular gameplay because I'm a fan of Carmageddon, for example. I think it's awesome, and GTA, and I mean it's great. But we're not trying to be Battlefield. What we're trying to do is focus on boots on the ground experience, not boots on the pedal or the throttle. And we really do have our hands full with, a first multiplayer release that, rivals the feature set and the content of, early SOCOM releases. So that's really going to be our focus. I won't rule it out. I have some ideas about vehicles and ways to present them that would be a little different. But our focus is on team-based tactical play, boots on the ground, and keeping it personal. And when you introduce a big truck or a tank, it's not really personal anymore, I guess.
Other than the splatter on the windshield, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there will be blood.
Yes, there will. All right. So next question. This one's by the one Joe Bob.
All right. Hey,
will any one platform HR is released on receive priority in terms of DLC, patching, etc.? And I actually like that question because there's a couple of franchises out there that have made their mark on the industry with doing that.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going for a simultaneous launch for any versions that we do. I mean, so far we're basically committing to PlayStation 4 and PC. I have 3 people who really, really, really want a Linux version. And if I get 3,000 more pledges for a Linux version, there would be a simultaneous Linux release, with the other 2 platforms. As far as what happens after launch, the realities are, we do develop on PC primarily, so it gets the initial testing, and then we're in parallel going to be testing it on PlayStation 4. Now, it becomes very mysterious once you release. The PC platform, it may be more stable. Our multiplayer code may be more stable on that for whatever weird reason. You never know with new hardware. So whichever one is, and I'm not predicting this is going to happen at all. In fact, I'm going to knock wood. In terms of emergency patches, it's, on demand. Whichever game has a catastrophic failure gets the patch first. Obviously, the PS4 guys are going to be tooling along, having a great time. Meanwhile, we've got PC is broken. We have to fix the PC version. But all DLC and expansions are going to be simultaneous because we're not trying to build a PlayStation 4 community or a PC community. We're trying to build an H-Hour community. And it's disingenuous and unfair to treat people who have spent their money and God knows how many hundreds of hours playing your game and
Right.
posted on forums and been supporters and worn your T-shirts and bought the action figure if we have action figures.
I want a Justin action figure.
Oh, a Justin?
Yeah, bobblehead.
Yeah, he needs. Do you need an action figure of that? I mean, we're talking about Justin, who's the gamer on our website.
I love Justin.
Oh yeah, well of course, but yeah, I think we're gonna do terrorist and special forces action figures first, and maybe
Awesome.
hostages. Who knows? So yeah, I hope that sets your mind at ease.
It makes perfect sense. It's almost like triage. You got to prioritize. It's like you said, some PS4 may not need a patch, but PC does. So
yeah, I mean it's our intention to heavily beta test this thing. So hopefully there's not going to be any major problems, but we're going to have to. It is a daunting task for a small studio to launch, a game on 2 platforms for online play. And expect there to be no problem. So I think we'll be very, very busy after launch looking at any minor problems that
Right.
crop. Yeah.
So here's the most famous question in SOCOM history.
Oh God.
Will there be ranked user-created rooms?
Ranked user-created.
Yeah, user-created ranked rooms. The most controversial topic in SOCOM history.
Wow. I need a cigarette now. I don't want to touch it.
I asked you if there's anything I couldn't ask, and I think I found it.
I think it's too late. Okay, well, like I said before, this is a perfect community crowdsourcing problem. I mean, it's like right now there's a huge amount of discussion about things like this and things like it, topics like this. Me finding and even working with full time with a community manager, finding everything anyone's ever said about ranked games of any kind is insane. So what I'm proposing to do is that everyone who actually has a stake or an opinion in this, is going to be part of a moderated discussion. They're welcome to come to the SOF Studios site and post in the forums that are geared towards that. The people who pledge at a higher level on Kickstarter get a window into our studio, which gives them guaranteed voice in
Right.
everything. And that's kind of a filter because we want to say thank you for believing in us when we were just starting. But I'd be crazy to not listen to the community at large. Some of the most passionate players I've ever seen for anything. So yeah, I mean, it's like what I can tell you is there is going to be a decided on set of parameter settings and rules by which the main ladder of ranked games will be judged.
Right.
And user-created ranked games, with different player choices like no grenades, shotguns only, or whatever. I'd say it's a possibility. And in a universe that was just created by me saying that out loud, it's probably going to happen. But in this universe, it really comes down to the final consensus
Right.
among the community.
Oh, that's a good answer. I like that.
Well, I'm not kidding around here.
Let's see. We got the next question here.
Yeah.
Going through, we got a few. That was by Extreme Warfare, by the way. That
Thank you,
posed that
Extreme.
question. Let's see. It's interesting to go through what everybody's saying in the chat of how many people are excited in the chat. Here we go. Okay, so SOCOM on the PS2 had several cheats in multiplayer. That's true in every game. One was when players would go down ladders, turn around, and magically walk under the map, shoot players above it. What are you planning on doing regarding potential cheaters and glitches? And I think it's that goes into the whole patch and DLC and testing. But I guess to kind of keep this one concise, you want to talk about the process that you go through with the dev team on dealing with glitches and soft spots and cheaters and such like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's certainly the old school approach, which is find every seam, right? Bulletproof your physics code, or if you're faking physics, kind of like we were in SOCOM, keep special casing it until it's kind of acceptable. Um, it's a totally different beast. What we're doing now and what we're trying to do in the early SOCOMs. The technology really was new, and we kept, it was a voyage of discovery, and
Right.
it didn't matter is how much we tested it. We found a few kind of exploits that were sort of built into the maps, and that the engine would allow, grenades at your feet that would throw you onto a place, rooftop you're never supposed to be able to get to, and then you could just own the map. Well, that we didn't find out about until the public had the game. And then, of course, patching anything on PS2 was, on the verge of impossible.
Impossible, right.
Yeah. So, there's certainly that. Engines are more robust, and, we've been through the process before, and, Russ certainly knows how important it is. Russ, former art director on
Right.
SOCOM, is working with us. That's elementary. Okay, so that'll, there won't be many. I can't say there won't be any, but that's the kind of stuff you can patch very rapidly today. So as soon as we know about it, we'll get to work on a fix and then deploy it. So the other stuff, though, people keep saying, "Wow, it's so easy to cheat," particularly on PC, and it is. And that's terrible. I don't like cheaters of any kind. Yeah, and that's something, and I've just been able to say what I just said was something I could never say when I was working at a big publisher. I love you guys and thank you for everything, but I can say that I'm going to make it a personal crusade, and since I'm the creative director, I can design. I can say that, right? I can design towards that. And I've mentioned this in a couple of other places, and I'm sure this question may or may not come up about analytics, and it's a multi-purpose feature set that's going to do some revolutionary work for us. But the cool thing about closely observing player behavior, player metrics, is not that we're watching everything you do because we just want to know what you're up to. It is that if we detect superhuman behaviors over any time slice, we can flag you for basically potential cheating. So if you find a way, you're using some sort of hack to fly around a map and you have infinite ammo or infinite grenades or greater radius grenades, it's going to be automatically flagged, and then we can monitor your cheating. And if you cheat, you'll receive an initial warning, and you cheat again, you're banned forever. And then your character that you have painstakingly crafted in the customizer is going to be sent to cheaters' hell. And you'll be able to walk past all of the players who don't cheat are going to basically be able to walk past all of the cheaters and shoot their characters and blow them up over and over and over.
Love it.
For eternity.
Love it.
Yeah, I think it's justice for all the people who have suffered at the hands of cheating, and it's a different approach. We're certainly going to use sort of off-the-shelf tools to detect cheating, but we're going to spend a lot of time and effort on new ways, new approaches to analyzing the way people play, and then finding cheaters where they breed. I mean, cheaters are the terrorists of the online world, and we all know what happens to terrorists.
Yes, we do. Good answer. I love that.
I hope that answers the question.
I think that does, and that came from SOCOM Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
All right, South Sayer 21 has a very straightforward and simple question: will there be noob tubes, RPGs, PM and mines, and claymores? And I have to say, I'm a very guilty party to the PMN mines in fault.
Those little bastards. Wow. Yeah. Again, kind of on the fence. I was the guy who advocated, I think, I'm pretty sure I was the guy who advocated to put PNM mines in originally. A lot of people loved them. A lot of people didn't like them. And it's the perfect kind of crowdsourcing opportunity. So it's just going to go on the list of things that we can find a good middle ground on. If we do decide to include them, there are all kinds of options that we have. We can choose to disallow them for the mainstream games, right? The main ladder, but still let people use these crazy little weapons of destruction, because a lot of people love it. There are a lot of strategies based around it. Same thing with the M203 and the M79 grenade launchers. I think in some parts of the world there are still some M79s. I think that's the designation. So you never know. But if you choose to not create a game that supports those, then you're free to do that. You'll have an exhaustive list of parameters that you can
Which is
choose.
great to hear, because one of the most popular and longest running tournament series for Urgent Fury was Black, which was a no boom tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Is what we called it. All explosive devices were removed, and it was the most popular. I think that ran for a total of almost 6 straight years over the course of SOCOM. Yeah.
Holy crud. Well, people were doing all kinds of crazy stuff out there. And it was really hard to tell what you were doing because, we didn't have a real window into individual games.
Right.
It wasn't like we could just spawn a developer's spectator camera and watch what you guys were doing. We had to hear about it after the fact in YouTube videos and forum posts and that kind of stuff. But people were creating their own games out of the, modestly simple tools that we were able to create for the early SOCOMs. And now I'm like, well, let's just build it with all of that stuff exposed. So, we have the mainline game, which we agree on is established for ranked play, and that's the way, I don't want to say hardcore, but people who treat it the most seriously will play it. And then there are all those specialty game formats that are going to emerge as people discover what the parameters really do. I mean, it's like sitting down with an Adobe product for the first time, and you're like, oh my God, what the heck do all these buttons and sliders and dials and couldn't they it's like, why are there all these options? Oh, now I know, because I want to do this.
Right.
So yeah, that's our intention.
Another good question. This one is from Javon214. I'm going to expand on his original question. He's asking about a universal clan voice chat like Justify 14's done, and it's almost like a chat channel for the entire clan. I know the other hot topic that I'm going to encompass in this, so if anybody's asked this, we're going to try and loop this all into one question, is a universal clan chat, push to talk, and proximity chat those are 2 hot topics on the forums right now.
Yeah.
What do you, and I know you're going to talk about this kind of more towards crowdfunding, but what are your thoughts, especially on proximity chat, because that wasn't in your original SOCOM design. I think that came in more with confrontation with the...
It actually was in, I think it was in SOCOM 2's design, and it was a hot topic then too.
Okay.
I don't remember if it was in SOCOM 2 or not, but I'm like, no, it makes perfect sense. You're like creeping up on some dude who is talking on the walkie-talkie. You can hear him talking. I mean, it just makes sense. But it's important to get the balance right when you're tuning it so that you can hear him from 300 meters away through 4 buildings. So, I'm a fan of proximity chat. I'm a fan of push to talk. I think that was the right decision for the early SOCOMs because it basically encouraged you to play more tactically. If you had something important, as in we need to do this now to avoid being exploded or shot or to, save the hostage or whatever, it kept things serious, like real-world Special Forces operators operate, right? And I thought that was a smart decision. The debate seems to be leaning more towards push-to-talk is the right way to go, which makes me happy. 'Cause I think it's the right way to go, but I'm certainly open to persuasion by very smart arguments.
I like that disclaimer.
Yeah, well, it's true. That's I think if I have one gift as a designer, it's to recognize the genius in others, and then of course to appropriate that for my own design, given credit, of course. But yeah, absolutely, there are many smarter people than me. So at least I'm lucky enough to be able to recognize it. So the those two things, my personal preference, and I guess where the community discussion is trending, but they're passionate advocates on both sides of that fence. Now, universal clan chat. Now, does this mean you can talk to your clan members in any game they're in from anywhere you are? Is that the question?
I'm not sure. I guess we can. Let me look and see if he can pop in and kind of answer that.
Okay.
But I know in Dust, now when you're in game, you can only chat with your group that you've created your channel vocally, but you can pull up a text chat and
Sure.
chat with your clans no matter what. And of course, PS4 now we're gonna have cross game chat available. So
well, go ahead.
I was gonna say it'll be interesting. Go ahead and kind of what your thoughts are, and let me see if anybody if he comes in and responds to what exactly he meant by that.
Okay. Well, generally speaking, like I said, wow, internet tech come a long way. It was kind of, do we even have time to support a USB keyboard text chat system for SOCOM and, voice chat? Can we even do voice chat? Yeah, maybe. Let's try it. Oh, it works. That's awesome. Now it is really, what tools that are already available do we want to support or make use of? I think that you probably wouldn't want all of your clanmates, sort of breaking into your game where you're trying to be serious and win. Your friend is in Aruba, on his iPad, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm in Aruba. What are you doing?" And it's like, "I just got killed. Thank you," because you stepped all over what I was trying to say. So I'm not so sure technology is always a good thing in terms of game design, so you have to be careful.
Right.
But having said that, other people have asked, will I be able to, talk with all my entire clan, at one time? And we're committed to giving everyone who starts an official clan on our servers through our game the ability to create a persistent clan room. So, you can go there and share links and talk and, as many people as you have in your clan. I don't really know if there's an upper limit. There probably is, I don't know, 1 billion or something.
It's a big clan.
So the population of half of India, no. But, to reasonable extent, yeah, of course. Because it is about developing relationships with each other in simulated warfare that will last a lifetime and hopefully extend beyond the realm of the game into your real life. The real important stuff, right? Like real humans in person.
Absolutely. And that's Urgent Fury is a great example. A lot of our clans are hitting that 10-year mark that they've been together, and they're like family.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I finally met someone, a girl, who is very active on our Kickstarter site. First SOCOM met online, got married, happily ever after story.
I saw that story.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty heavy. So I'm pulling for them. I'm sure they're going to beat the odds. I'm sure everyone who's met online through SOCOM is going to live happily ever after.
A tall order.
Yeah, we'll see. I can't hold me to that.
I think I've got the first question you won't give me an answer to.
Possibly.
What engine is HAR being developed on?
Oh, what a wonderful question that I'm not going to answer.
I knew that was coming.
Sorry, guys. I would tell you. It's like
proprietary. Is that the right word?
Proprietary to us? No. The issue with announcing what engine we're going to use is entirely business motivated. We haven't licensed it yet. And while the guys who make the engine are fantastic and really good people and go out of their way to make sure developers in the sort of position that we're in, don't suffer unduly through licensing fees, at the same time, we don't want to say, yeah, we're going to use it, and then find out that we can't really afford it for whatever reasons.
Right.
there are other good alternatives, but I do have one in mind. We've been working with it a while. I've taught myself to use the editor, and wow, that was awesome. Because I don't normally get to do that. Normally I'm just being directory.
Right.
But this time I get to do
You get to push
all
buttons.
that kind of stuff. I push a lot of buttons and twiddle a lot of dials and pull levers and stuff like that. So I can tell you this game engine is known for its renderer, its multiplayer capabilities, and the success of many titles that have shipped on it at AAA quality and done really well for their publishers and developers.
Love to hear
So I'm
that.
sorry I can't tell you today, but as soon as we can announce it, we will announce it for sure.
Here's an interesting question, and something that Justin and I have actually talked about in the very early days of H-Hour, is cross-platform play. So will PC players be able to play against PS3 players? And is there a way to make this? I love this addition to this. Is there a way to make it to where neither has an advantage over each other? And I think that last part is a very huge challenge. But as for setting it up to where you can play alongside a clanmate that has a PC versus a PS4, is that in the plan?
Wow. Okay. Good question, I suppose. Okay. The PC is going to continue to scale upwards, while the PlayStation 4 is going to be a fixed hardware platform. Right. And you can already, depending on the sort of graphics cards. Are you losing me, by the way?
No, I'm not.
Okay, great. Depending on the graphics cards and RAM and how many cores you have, you can get some just ludicrous frame rates on a PC, well beyond the capability of the average television set to display, even if the PlayStation 4 was able to push that many frames a second, and and to an extent on beyond the ability of the human organism to recognize changes in movement across a certain time slice of frames. So. I think the biggest issue is the PC comes with, you can accessorize it with really sweet mice and keyboards, and you can do these macro things, and that's kind of obnoxious. So our way to combat that would, of course, be to, support that stuff for PlayStation 4, although I don't think it's practical to have a mouse attached to a console for the most part. There's the whole couch thing to deal with.
TV tray for the win.
And there are devices for that. I know people use them, but it's really, there would be a ton of additional support required on the PlayStation 4 to make it, to give you the same kind of macro creation capability, that kind of stuff. We could do it. And then there is still the mystery of how, our game is going to be talking with, PlayStation Network and our servers, and, what that arrangement will be. So it's too early for me to commit to that, even if I absolutely wanted to and had a precise answer. So I shouldn't. But at the same time, I think what's even more interesting than being able to play with each other, because both of these games are going to have very large numbers of players, I believe. So you're not going to have trouble finding a game. What's interesting is all of the data that comes out of both sets of players, both worlds of players, and the ability to talk to people who are in one of those worlds from the other world. And it's an opportunity for us to, using analytics again, to look at really how do PC players play versus how PlayStation 4 players play. My suspicion is we're going to uncover, the answers that will surprise people. Things like, for a long time, I mean, certainly when I started in this industry, we were basically told girls don't play games. Really? And then, if they play games, they only want to play Barbie games or things with ponies and unicorns and rainbows. And we know that's not true now. And that's just the nature of
Right.
the progress of human civilization. We live by these ridiculous, truths, and then find out, well, that was all wrong, and we wasted a lot of time.
Like Pluto's no longer a planet.
Yeah, and I'm still angry about that. It's totally a planet. I'm sorry, Mr. Tyson, Professor Tyson. Disagree. So I think we're going to have answers about how we could consider merging those worlds. The real question is, do people really want that? I think we may find that on the console side, people are playing one way, and
Right.
on the PC side, they're playing a different way. And in the end, everybody's customizing their games, to play more
Right.
like that. So the worlds still never overlap, even though they're coexisting. Or I could be happily surprised.
I've always said that the first shooter that could pull off getting Microsoft and PlayStation to agree to let the two consoles cross-play
Wow. And that's going to happen.
would be genius.
Yeah, it's going to happen right about the same time as the zombie apocalypse. So I hope everyone's stocked up on soup and heating fuel, because that is going to be crazy time. No offense,
Oh, of course.
but they have a vested interest in keeping their worlds very separate. What I was going to follow up with is, in terms of data, if you have a PC and you want to support your clan on PlayStation 4, for example, we're going to look at ways that you can connect and contribute in some way. This is kind of off in the meta sphere of game design.
Right.
No contributions that enable, superhuman performance, no intel that you shouldn't have, and that kind of stuff. But we may use mobile devices in the PC, and even sort of apps on the PlayStation 4 that let you do things that aren't actually playing H-Hour, but contribute to the H-Hour online experience.
Could I say similar to what I'm sure you saw the Battlefield 4's Commander mode that they debuted at E3, that is done via. Yeah, they debuted at E3, and they did that. The Commander mode, they had it on a tablet while the guys were playing.
Yeah, and we've been talking about things like that for over a year now, and it just makes sense. And certainly, think about 10 years ago where we were just lucky to get the internet to talk to us, and now it's like I have an iPhone slave to my iPad, and my iPad is controlling the media server on my PC, which is actually streaming to my PlayStation 3. Blah blah blah. It's just silly not to look at all this technology and the way people are using it, and then make some smart choices about using it to support the kind of game we want to make. So yeah, you may not be playing each other head to head, PC versus console, but you can sort of straddle the two worlds using other means. Okay,
so one of the other questions I've seen come up, and I didn't catch the name because the chat's actually starting to get really busy now, which is great.
Awesome.
Was how snipers and scopes are going to work. With a specific add-on, are we going to see scopes similar to SOCOM 1 and 2 versus 3 in Confrontation and Combined Assault?
I'm going to say yes. We reserve the right to fix things about the kind of core gameplay experience that SOCOM 1 and SOCOM 2 presented. If people have complained about the way something behaved, and they're in the majority, then we're going to take this opportunity to address it, but basically maintaining the core experience as much as possible. Scopes, I believe, they might be thinking about, if you fire a lot, it kicks out. There's recoil and jump and all that kind of stuff, for sure. It's a stickier situation to resolve in terms of should there be a reticle on screen at all if you're not zoomed in through the scope and that kind of thing. But that's our starting point, right? The way we did it in SOCOM 1 and SOCOM 2. And we'll try to address anything that bugged the majority of people about the way we handled things then.
All right, so we've been going for about an hour. Do you want to take a quick break, or do we want to keep going?
Why don't we keep going for the next 30 minutes, and then I'll go get another coffee.
Love it. All right, so one of the questions is they're interpreting that your goal is for a 2015 release date. He's not asking for an exact date, but do you have a goal in mind?
Yeah, much as the way we very boldly and stupidly announced during E3 this year, I'm sure we will choose an equally stupid time to release H-Hour. God. No, seriously. We need a certain amount of time to make this happen the right way. I don't want to release anything that's, grievously broken or less than as perfect as I can make it. And right now, I think it was projected January 2015 for the launch, and now with PS4, that's kind of a really big order for us. So yeah. Now, the thing to keep in mind, though, is when we find partners who want to publish H-Hour, they're going to have their own ideas about marketing and release schedules and promotion and that kind of stuff. And they're going to say, wow, you boneheads, no, not like you did announcing at E3. You can't. Are you kidding? Trust us. And if they're spending the same, more money, in fact, seems to be the trend, spending more money on marketing H-Hour, so more people know about it, so you're going to have, more players to play with on the day we launch. I think it's smart to listen to them, to listen to publishers and those kinds of partners. So it's approximately, I feel like it's going to take that amount of time. But, again, window into our studio, I really want to keep our core team fairly small. I don't want more than 50 people in one spot. We're free to grow our distributed network of content creators. Right. All people I've worked with before, all people I trust implicitly. But the core team, much like we made SOCOM 1 and SOCOM 2 with a fairly small team, under 100 for the vast majority of the development, I think. I like that. I like being able to know everyone's names. I like knowing what everyone's up to, and if they have questions about the design or the way something's implemented, they can just come to me, and we can work directly. Once you get beyond that size, it becomes very, very difficult, right. And then you have to start introducing management. And when you introduce management, that is when you start to put your game, the creative vision of your game at some risk. A lot of people say, oh, David, you're a creative director and you have all the power, and you can do anything you want. And I'm like,
but
it doesn't actually work that way, because most of the time I'm finding out, that management is telling people on the team to do things that I don't want to do, that aren't in the design or aren't important. So I want to keep it small, and that means that we need a little more time to make a perfect gem of a multiplayer game. Having said that, I'm more than happy to work with an extended network of people I've worked with before, and depending on the nature of whatever future funding we get outside the Kickstarter campaign, I do know a lot of people that I'd love to work with again, and vice versa. So there's potential to pull the release date in.
Cool.
Hire more testers and have a bigger beta or two betas. So it's a possibility. And for me, I think it might be becoming obvious to the community. This project it started as a mission, and it has become an epic quest. It's really all I think about, and it's all I do. So the sooner I can have this game in your hands, the happier I'm going to be. And I don't know if I can survive 2 years without sleeping. So the sooner the better. I hope that answers your question. I was as specific as I could be.
I'm gathering questions now as the chat is moving fast.
Oh, good. Is it going well?
Absolutely.
Okay, good, cool.
All right, so this is going to be a long discussion. I can already see. So we're gonna. I'm gonna
just talking. It's a one-sided discussion of me talking.
I'm gonna give you this topic, and I'm gonna let you run with it because I can imagine how long this is going to elaborate. And this may be something that we need to come back on another just dedicated topic.
Wow. Is this going to be a GDC talk next year?
I don't know if it's a GDC talk, but it's a cornerstone of SOCOM.
Okay.
Can you elaborate on the clan system, and also mentioned in that same topic is, can you talk about the clan constitution?
Yeah, a little bit. I think everybody who believes that, I mean, you might argue, wow, there's so much.
I warned you.
My brain is overloaded. The heyday of clans, some people would argue, has come and gone. You might point to the way they are supported or not supported in various titles that come out semi-regularly. I believe that it is time for the golden era of clans, and not necessarily in the traditional sense. Clans were entirely the responsibility of individuals,
right.
People who had to create their own websites and then do, tireless, endless maintenance of their rosters and, managing email lists and IRC chat, right? And then setting up tournaments was, it was like a gentleman's agreement to do this and these settings, and we're all going to meet in 30
Don't know
paces.
nothing about that.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's just like, wow, you could employ a person full-time for an active clan to set up and manage all this. And you know what happens when you introduce management. So I want to get rid of that. I've been talking to people in the community. I've been talking to Justin, who's on our studio team. And he gave me the idea of a clan constitution, which I think his clan derived
right.
For themselves a long time ago. And again, this is another example of me being just barely smart enough to recognize a great idea from somebody else, and then, of course, to evangelize the heck out of it and build a design around it. But, there were missing pieces. I mean, there was still the management aspect, right? You had to police your own clan and make sure everybody was behaving, to the standards that had been set forth in a clan constitution. But it's really now with something like analytics that allows clan leaders to monitor the behavior and the performance of individuals and the clan as a collective. You can tell, are people actually playing the way you've asked them to play, or the way they've committed to playing based on, the sort of, user license, that you sign when you join a clan. We're going to let you use boilerplate language to put together your own constitution that can be as regimented or laissez-faire as you want. At the same time, you can put together with just a few clicks or button presses, you can have a clan up and running, upload a bitmap, as long as it's not genitalia. I do draw the line, that one thing. I don't want to see any poop, any images of poop or genitalia or boobs.
Giggity.
But within the realms of, don't be vulgar. And
right.
Don't offend any, race or ethnicity or religion. It's your frontier to run wild in. So just a few clicks and you've got a clan up and running, or you can spend hours and hours and hours deputizing members to have different responsibilities, or fine-tuning the rules of your clan's etiquette and its ethics. We're giving you the tools to create tournaments with, again, just a few button presses, to be in constant contact in the game and through external devices or email everyone in your clan. All the the crazy networking and back and forth you had to do for creating tournaments before. You're basically just going to agree, and then go. I mean, we really are going to spend a lot of time making this very simple for people to do, and that's why I think the golden age of clans is almost upon us. I think that people have. I think modern games very often encourage people to play recklessly and, to be trolls and to cheat and this sort of thing. And clans are a fantastic way of, bringing people together under one banner, basically fighting and committed to one cause.
Right.
And if you want, I mean, you can create a clan that's dedicated to just going out and introducing yourself, being nice. You don't have to actually shoot anybody. I mean,
Is
you
that
can make
possible?
that. Well, for sure. I mean, you just arm yourself with, smoke. And that's all you do. If that's your thing,
the smoking pansies.
Yeah, and your clan badge is a smiley face, and all you do is go around and introduce yourself very politely to people. Go for it, right?
I don't think it'll be a smiley face.
Clan.
I think it'll be a leaf, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's time, and I'm not sure why there's been so much drift. Towards other ways to interact with the community in terms of game development, game design. But again, going back to that moment where Seth asked me to design a lobby system, or said we need a lobby system, and I'm like, oh Lord, I got to figure this out. In hindsight, it's really just very obvious that's what we should be doing, and I feel very strongly about that. Obviously, have I been talking 10 minutes about it? Probably. But we're really going to go as far as we can with this, and then we're going to continue to expand and update it as we release DLC, because we're not fire and forget. We're the game needs to evolve based on the needs of the community, and as I said before, you're always really surprised when your game gets in the hands of the players, and suddenly this massive crowd of people is doing crazy stuff you didn't anticipate and certainly couldn't test for. Same thing for clan stuff, clan support. I think people are going to say, and we want this, and can you do this? And the wonderful thing is most of it's pretty straightforward. It's not like making a map that plays great every single time you play it. It's like, yeah, this is an interface, and we send packets of data, and it shows up in your inbox, and people show up at the right time and play a game that you've created using clan tools.
So, in line with some of the questions that have come in about clans, a key one, and we saw this with Starhawk, with the analytic they tried to use to rank clans, is there going to be a clan leaderboard?
Yes, I don't know the particular formula we're going to use to determine the ranking, but we're going to have ranked, ladders for all kinds of stuff.
Right.
I mean, I was making fun of nice people just a minute ago, but it's entirely possible that we can offer a Good Samaritan ladder, right? People who just jump in games that need that one last person and then are an MVP and have the most saves and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, we're wide open. We're definitely committing to having more than one kind of ladder beyond ranked games.
Right.
The clan thing, again, analytics is going to make it easier in some ways, but we do need a solid algorithm for determining, hey, which clan's on top. And part of that's going to be derived from, are they playing pure ranked games using the rules that we say we use for ranked games, and then it gets messy when you're saying we're going to have a tournament and it's pistols only. It's kind of hard to rank that. And another problem, I do want everyone to understand this, the more parameters we give you to tune, to customize the experience for each match, the more difficult it will be to, sort of conceptualize ranking those kinds of games in any meaningful way, because there are going to be millions upon millions of possible combinations. So it's like if you expect pistols only to be ranked, that can happen because that's very concrete, it's very discrete. But when you add a lot of different parameters, it becomes less and less likely. I think it's obvious. Did I answer that?
I think you answered that. By the way, I don't know how to say this, but Equanostalgia or whatever, you're his or her hero, and she sends you hearts. He or she sends you hearts. I just wanted to pass that on.
Well, thanks. Right back at you. So this is really cool. I'm actually getting to know people. Almost, one-to-one, first-hand relations. There's still this weird internet barrier, but hopefully we'll get to meet at events and that kind of thing.
Okay, so I've kind of been putting these questions in groups here, and I'm gonna bring one that involves us, Urgent Fury, as a community partner and our kind of our role down the road as we see it with this. And so we'll start with: are you intending on putting a LAN option in? Because I'm sure you've noticed that outside of Call of Duty, the LAN option for games has
gone away,
kind of disappeared.
Yeah, you know, the story I like to tell about LAN support, going back to the early SOCOM era, we were like, oh, who the heck's going to play this on LAN? Really? You know, the Sony's just dropped the broadband adapter on us, and now we have to figure out how to use this, and that's enough. I mean, come on, it's crazy trying to develop all this technology and have it be reliable, and it was super messy and difficult, and then we were like, yeah, but you know what? Men and women in the armed forces are not going to be able to play this game on aircraft carriers or battleships or, you know, in the field, wherever, Afghanistan, nuclear submarines. And that's why we wanted to include LAN play, because, you know, this is why, you know, we did it. It was to support people that didn't have that option. And now I think people are still playing those early SOCOMs that way.
Because that's the only option they have now.
Yeah, well, yeah, until H-hour, right?
Right. Well, it was more along the means of them shutting the servers down, which was a shock to everybody. But the guys over Luke and them at Real SOCOM and several of the community got together to say, hey, let's use X-Fire and we'll make our own network. That's how the internet was born, by the way.
Yeah. Happily enough, it worked out, right? And the reason we did it was different, but from the reason people are using it now. But you know, it's one of those. You know, sometimes I think that you are blessed. The universe smiles upon you when it's not busy torturing you to within an inch of your life, and you get these happy, you know, confluences of design and, you know, the future, right? It's like we didn't know. We were sort of future-proofing the game for multiplayer, but that's exactly what happened. So yeah, I'm a big believer in LAN play and LAN parties. Some of my best gaming experiences are being able, you know, they're tied directly to being able to punch the person right next to me, and that's really hard to do.
Disclaimer: we don't encourage punching your opponents while you're at a LAN tournament with Urgent Fury.
Yeah, you don't. I do. I totally encourage that. But you know, you don't get the full effect of the screaming and people jumping up and throwing their controller down and, you know, doing a dance, you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's certainly my intention. Again, we have our hands full getting, you know, deploying a full multiplayer via internet solution, of course. But you know, I'm super fond of LAN play, and if it's not in the launch, it will be in one of the DLC releases shortly thereafter. Call it a patch, but yeah.
So, going in line with that, obviously we've talked about tournaments several times throughout the evening. How is HR going to cater to competitive players? And I'm going to kill Luke for using this example and knowing that Urgent Fury is here, mentioning SOCOM battles and game battles, because we started at the same time and we stayed true and didn't get bought out.
Oh, snap. Okay.
But you know,
right.
So competitive communities such as MLG, UMG, you know, the major players, Urgent Fury, Frag Nation, versus say the smaller tournament sites out there like PGL Circuit, I guess, maybe Elite Battlezone, the smaller sites that are more very community, whereas you've got the major players that work directly with Sony and Microsoft.
Okay. Well, we take a sort of Switzerland-esque approach to this.
That's a good answer.
You know, my philosophy is that we should be designing this to be fully supportive and compatible with esports protocols. You know, which, you know, at its heart, the core gameplay already is, right, for the most part. What we need to pay attention to is the ability for, you know, sort of moderation, spectator camera support at a healthy number of cameras.
Thank you.
Switching between set perspectives, ghost mode, fly-throughs, player follow, and plus a whole bunch of other stuff that, you know, we never had time to do on the PS2, but making it super easy for people who want to observe and commentate on this stuff, giving them the tools to be able to go right where the action is. I think based on what I know about the PlayStation 4, you're going to be able to share video stuff, stream all kinds of crazy amounts of stuff. So we've got to support that. And yeah, I mean, that's basically my answer. I mean, you can run any kind of tournament rules you want. We're just going to make it ready and very welcoming to people who want to, embrace it as sort of an esports title. I hope that answers the question.
I think that does. And I have to give credit to Interdub for the LAN question. He already sent me text messages saying that I stole that question. That was actually by Interdub.
Right on. Thank you. Good question.
And so, by the way, I want to make a shout out. It's possible the actual Seth Luisi is in the chat. I have no way of verifying that's really Seth, as Seth knows his Twitter was.
Oh yeah, he's in it now. He's in it. Hey Seth, say something that only Seth would say, and I'll know.
All right.
Okay.
So let me look at while we wait for Seth to respond. Good question, and something different from what we've been seeing in the questions. Talk about how you're going to handle music style in H Hour, because it's interesting because and I referenced Dylan Job a lot because we worked really close with Dylan on Starhawk, and they did a great interview talking about how they use music in the game and how much influence music can have in the way you play.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the intention with SOCOM, the first two. And Sony, bless their hearts, they were such good sports, Seth and Connie and all those guys, because they would come out with this long list of needs for assets that they were responsible for paying for, and getting to us, and music was a huge part of that, and it was. There were lots and lots of little pieces of music, both in single player and multiplayer, that were there for subtle and not so subtle cueing. About how is combat going for you, and of course nobody can forget the victory themes and the main theme, of course. And my only criteria for the theme was when I was talking to Seth about it was, dude, I don't care how symphonic it is, I just want to be able to hum it when I heard it. And after I can hum it, if I wanted to make up silly lyrics, I could do that too. And that's exactly what we got. I think the music for SOCOM 2 is just superb. Enon Zur is, he's an icon and he's amazing. A lot of people are asking us, can you work with Enon again? And I'm like, I think Enon sort of exists in that world where, he's such a luminary and so sought after. We couldn't afford him with the budget that we're projecting to make H Hour happen. Having said that, I was introduced to a fantastic composer and orchestrator who has many of the qualities of Enon I recognized right away, and is an all-around good human being and great to collaborate with. And she's already provided the music for our pitch trailer on Kickstarter. And she has the capability to swing very, very widely in terms of the emotional moods, and texture of her music.
Excellent.
Everything from the symphonic feel that we were so successful with in the early SOCOMs, to much more contemporary influences. Things that I would like to introduce, certainly in the user interface, not necessarily in the actual core game, but things that are edgier. A broader range of instrumentation perhaps for the UI than we used in terms of the orchestra for SOCOM 2. So Pinka, shout out to you. You're wonderful, and can't wait to work with you on the soundtrack to this next game.
I like to throw my recommendation for Patrick Ghost to help her out, just because he's done the music, all the music behind Urgent Fury and all of the production behind Urgent Fury he's done, and he's excellent as well. So here's a real quick question going back to clans: is will there be an instant ability? Well, it's one I should have asked when we were talking about it, but will there be an instant way to invite somebody to the clan?
Yes, of
and
course.
you know, 'cause there's
And to get rid of them too. If it turns out you don't like them, yeah, it's like, wow, you're awful. Goodbye.
you know, they're used to. As it's progressed, it's been harder and harder to invite people into the clan. I don't know why, but
it's like it's a conspiracy, isn't it? I mean, the more you talk about it, this is like the Art Bell show, because
right.
it's very, very clear something's up, and people don't want people to be able to band and play the way they want. And wow, I hope I don't have a JFK moment or something, because who knows? Maybe I'm breaking some sort of
Unknown law,
probabilistic law in the games industry. But I'm like, no, it's obvious. Let's just do it, and like and I can. That's the amazing thing. Being independent, we will only partner with people who agree with our design philosophy, and that's wonderful. It's like, and I know they're out there. It may be, who knows? It may be a German VC or publisher, or some oil tycoon in Japan who believes. But there's lots of people with billions of dollars, and who are going to buy into this vision for H-Hour. So. God, it's going to be easy to invite people.
Good.
You're going to be able to invite them from your phone. You're going to be able to invite them from the internet. You're going to be able to invite them from within the game, for sure. Yeah.
All right, so easy question, probably the easiest one I'm going to give you. Is there going to be, when the game, down the road when the game ships, or we get to a point where actually people get it, is it going to be only digital? Is it going to be only hard copy, or is it going to be both?
Wow, that's a great question. I've heard it a couple times, and I tend to not respond to it.
So not an easy question.
Well, it isn't. It isn't. The harsh one of the things people probably don't know about me, because I'm like all about. I'm a game designer and I'm a creative director and I make creative stuff that you play. At various times I've also served as a producer or a project manager, which meant I had to learn and use Excel and freaking Project.
I love that program. As I roll my eyes.
Yeah. I'm not going to say anything, but it was not the happiest time of my life. But it forced me to think about the business side, and the ramifications of every design choice I made. And it's more than just the numbers of money; it's time, and it's wear and tear on your team. Will there be hard copy? It's certainly possible. And, I love a manual. I love maps, and that's why we're offering, that pledge tier on Kickstarter where you can get, these really cool Sea Sniper maps in the grand old tradition of the ones they did, going way back to the early SOCOM days, because I think that's really awesome. And you need that kind of tangible stuff. I'm a big believer in real stuff. I think I was the last person on planet Earth to adopt iTunes because I just didn't trust it. And then I realized I couldn't actually find CDs anymore, so I had to start using iTunes.
Right.
I'm definitely old school that way. But the reality, the business reality that I know, all too well, is we're only able to offer H-Hour to you for the budget that we're projecting in our stretch goals. Because we can keep costs extremely low.
Right.
And part of that is not offering you a physical media, or anything beyond the maps. I mean, we'll do a PDF, which is, game instruction stuff. But really, a well-designed game is going to teach you to play it while you are playing it. So, how much manual do you really need? I would rather spend our time in investing in cool, side projects. Like, here's a bunch of cool tactical maps that you can laminate and use, a dry erase marker.
Right.
To test out your strategies on paper and then, adjust sort of, while you're playing. I'd love to do a manual. I wouldn't even mind writing a manual. But the truth really is, I don't think you're going to need it. And it's a huge expense and time sink that I think would be better spent on features and content for you guys. But I'm old school. If I could do a manual, I'd totally do it.
I guess since Brady Games has been a partner of Virgin Fury now for coming on 5 years, believe it or not, would you be willing to let them do a guide? Because they did the SOCOM 1, SOCOM 2, SOCOM 3, I think was the last guide they did.
Yeah, of course. Sure, why not?
Cool.
I think that's awesome.
I'll pass that on to Mike over at Ready Games. He'll be happy to hear that.
Right on.
Real quick, I'm going to call him EQ just because I can't pronounce his name, but he did confirm that he's a dude and he loves you in a totally straight way.
Hey, love me any way you want. Just support H Hour, man. That's
good answer.
Right on.
All right, we're getting close to that 30-minute mark, so I want to do one more question before we take a break. H Hour, did you ever contemplate free-to-play similar to Warframe, which was debuted or we saw on PS4 at, actually we saw several free-to-play PS4 games. Have you contemplated free-to-play? Because that model seems to be working really well.
Okay, yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, is anything free to play? No. You pay, and you're always being messaged to pay, and people are getting really sneaky and devious about encouraging you to pay a little bit more. And I'm pretty blatant about that. I'm like, okay, we're offering the game for as little money as we can afford to offer it for, and we're going to continually release over the lifespan of H Hour and all its successors DLC, and we're asking you to spend a small amount of money on the DLC. Do you have to buy the DLC to get new weapons? No. Do you have to buy the DLC to get, the latest patch and tuning for character speed or map fixes? No, of course not. But if you really want to customize your character, for example, and I think there's going to be huge demand in the crowd of clan players, you want to look like nobody else? Well, okay, give us $5 or whatever for our DLC, and you can choose between all this different, purely aesthetic choices, all inspired by real-world military gear and equipment. So yeah, I mean that's kind of our business approach to this, our business model. I guess technically you could say we're free to play, except we're kind of charging you a little bit up front, which helps us meet all of our development costs and keep the lights on. And then once people are actually playing H Hour, if a healthy number continue to buy the DLC, that allows us to improve on features and make more content and, continue the stories of, the real untold stories of special forces, retired special forces operators, and try new stuff. It's it's totally a rant coming on. I know it's the 30-minute mark, but I kind of want to do it. So
it's only delaying your break for your coffee. So rant away.
Okay.
Soapbox in place.
Yeah. I'm in my big white chair, and I am, I'm on the internet, TV, so why not? Free to play. Wow. At the risk of destroying my chances of ever working at another company where they do free to play, if the worst thing happens and this isn't a success. I think it's you can certainly roll that way, but one of the things I did while we were talking about how to develop our business model for H Hour and our studio, I did an exhaustive competitive analysis of free-to-play games. And what I found is none of them are free at all. I mean, you can download it for free, but to have any kind of meaningful balanced experience, you're paying, and you're paying a lot. I mean, I saw weapons, and I tried them out, that were identical to all other weapons in that class, and I was supposed to pay $5 to $10 to have a gold skin or a pink skin, and it was otherwise the same. And I thought, well, I'm really glad that you're making hundreds of millions of dollars doing that, but as a game designer and a gamer from way back, I do not approve. I simply do not, and I refuse to offer that to people and say it's free to play, and then laugh about it. Well,
it's truly free to pay.
It's pay to win in many cases, and I don't believe that's fair, and that's why I'm committing to. We're going to keep adding to the arsenal in H Hour, but everybody's going to get that stuff. nobody's going to be left out. You are not going to have to pay to get the next, submachine gun. It's ridiculous, and it makes me very, very angry. Well, you can totally tell there's no marketing guy here with me because I have just
tackled you out of your throne.
Yes, I'm in it. And I was going to say something else about it. The people have asked, why, aren't you rich? Why are you asking people to fund your demo? And can't you just call, these publishers? And,
if it were that easy, we'd already have another SOCOM title, whether good or bad.
Oh yeah, you would have seen us at E3, right? And
right.
And this sort of Kickstarter success story is actually not unusual. Takedown went from asking for the same amount that we're asking for, a little over a year ago, I guess, and they were showing their game to great effect at E3.
Yeah, it was playable at E3 this year because No Fear played it.
Yeah, well, there you go. So it can happen, and rather than sort of make a deal with the devil where we have to enter into this sort of money-making pyramid scheme, releasing weapons that aren't tuned and skins that are meaningless and new characters that are essentially the same as every other character, they're barely visibly different. We'd rather keep things smaller, build a large player base, and give you a lot more value for every dollar that we do ask you to spend. And I feel like that's good karma. I don't want to make a game that's all about the money. And again, I'm crossing a line because I know the guys in our
I'm about to get a call from Tom.
Yeah, Tom is like, what are you, Sears? I'm killing you. I'm totally coming for you. He's probably driving over right now. No, we need to be solvent, and people need to, we'll have a big team, 50 people and an extended family across, North America and wherever making this game. But I just wanted to bring it up while I have a sort of a public forum. None of us are rich. And, the days of me being able to just waltz into a publisher and, by sheer force of will, convincing them to give me a letter of intent for $1.5 million or $2.5 million to do something like this, they're gone. Over and over again, every time we met with investors, they're always, yeah, it's fantastic, and I love the community support, and it means so much to me. But, when can I see the demo? And I'm like, well, I don't know. How long would it take one man to build the Great Wall of China? It would be a while. That's why I'm asking for some funding from people who are passionate about a quality game that wants to take chances and listen to the community. Because if I can show the pretty pixels and prove, which I know we can, and just prove this to publishers and VCs, we're not going to have any problem giving you the kind of game that you want and the kind of game that I've promised and I'm dying to make. So, long-winded answer, free to play, no. I was not happy having to do that research. I think it eroded what was left of my soul.
Well, hopefully we can bring your soul back. And
Yeah.
With that note of bringing your soul back, when we return, we're going to take a quick break so that David can get some more coffee and throw his controller down after talking about free to play. And then the first thing we're going to talk about that's been asked in the chat is we want to talk about what Suck My Turbines role about Suck My Turbines role. So
cool.
we'll talk about that when we get back.
Right on. Thanks.
All right, so you guys watching in, we are going to run a few commercials, pay the bills, and like I said, we'll be right back while David gets something to drink real quick, and I'm going to grab something to drink, and he moves his jackalope to the throne.
Hello? I'm back.
Okay. I'll tell
Ow.
you.
Hello?
David, I hear you. I'm on the phone. Hold on just a sec.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Let me check to see if the commercials are over yet. All right, it looks like we are back. And David, I mentioned as you walked away, you put the jackalope on the throne.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's where it normally is. Hey, before I forget, I don't want people to think that I found nothing to like about free-to-play games. There were certainly some standouts that I'm a huge fan of, like Tribes
Okay.
and Darklight, for sure. I mean, wow. That's kind of the way to roll. So anyway,
To
we're more
add
inspired by their model, I think, by Tribe's model than.
to add to that, I actually kind of like World of Tanks model
Oh, yeah?
for free to play because the only thing you get out of subscribing is you gain it's like a 25% increase in, I don't know what the exact percentage is, in experience,
Yeah.
but you still have to go through all of the, with the exception of you can buy some tanks, you can buy some higher tier tanks. You're right next to the guy that's not paying and having to go through the whole process of earning those experience points to get the next move to the next level in tanks. But it's not to where you could play for free and still have a chance.
Sure.
So I applaud World of Tanks for keeping it at least close.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, once you set down a path, you're sort of committed. So,
Right.
I think they got the balance as in favor of the free, from what you're describing, which I think is commendable. Yeah.
So we're gonna real quick, guys, in the chat. I know that you've asked about custom controls and things like that. That is coming. I've also got questions about ghillie suits and such. So we will get to your questions. Just kind of bear with us. This is a very informal. Keep throwing the questions at us.
I'll say.
But by all means, David is here, open-minded and open-mouthed, I guess is a good way to put it, spilling the beans here. And we're not going to try to. David will call it when he says, "Okay, I've had enough. We got to get off here." We don't have no set end time until David's ready to go. So,
well, I'm sorry. It's not like these people can't find me.
I know, right?
It's like my life is very different now. That we pulled back the curtain. Yeah, if it doesn't get answered here, I'll certainly be able to answer you in another.
Right, absolutely.
Another way.
There's the SOF forums, as well as you can put questions right into the Kickstarter. When you pledge, you're able to put comments and questions in there as well. So there's plenty of unlimited. Plenty is not the word. There's unlimited access to Mr. David Sears when it comes to getting questions. Now, whether or not he'll give you the full answer depends on what the question is.
It's true, and there's a lot of questions. So, in the early days of the early days. Wow, 2 weeks ago, back in the early days of the Kickstarter campaign. Yeah, it was very easy. I was responding to everybody who pledged, as much as I could. And now I'm like, oh God, is that a question? I'll try to answer that. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that, way more than, the stuff people see moment to moment. But anyway,
Okay.
So you're asking about Suck My Turban.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to also, after you explain kind of what his role is going to be, I also want to know if that's going to be a single person's role, or have you thought about maybe putting together kind of a small panel of that role?
Yeah, I think, as usual, I will attack this obliquely, and you won't know what I'm talking about until I'm done, and then probably you still won't know. It's very much like, we're supportive and modeling clans after the Constitution of the United States, which is, it's crazy, but it works, right?
Right.
That's very much the way that I'm approaching the community at large. So you could, if the analog was the United States government, and we're assuming a government that works flawlessly and really does give voice to the people in every occasion, which as is intended, that's really what we're doing with the community and H-Hour. So you might say that someone like Suck My Turban is one of the chief justices. He sits on the sort of Supreme Court, whereas all of our Kickstarter backers represent the Senate. Fans of all kinds represent the House of Representatives, and then various people in the company itself, such as myself, represent Commander-in-Chief or whatever. Right, Secretary of State, etc. We all have sort of different, sort of faux titles. The thing about Suck My Turban, I knew he was out there, and
we all knew.
Yeah, I don't think I had actually watched a single one of his videos until last week. I'd certainly never gotten on the phone with him and said, "Hey, dude, what's up? How crazy are you, really?" But not to blow his mystique, he plays a character on YouTube, and the guy that he is when you're really talking to him one-on-one about game design and what goes into making a game happen, and that guy. He has really good instincts, and he certainly has, in his mind, I think part of his DNA now, he has sort of an ongoing simulation of the original SOCOMs. He's super passionate about that. So I'd be crazy to not, sort of pull back the kimono, to let Turban have a voice. Does this mean that anyone else has, a lesser voice? Not really. Again, it's sort of the government, U.S. government or Constitution analogy at play. Luckenbacher is, I would say, if Turban is, if he is the conscience of the gamer, the gaming community for H-Hour, then Luke is the elder statesman. The guys have different personalities, and they play different characters on YouTube or the forums, but the men who actually care deeply about the way SOCOM played and want to see it happen again, and who are supporting us now to make this happen, they're sort of like they're the inner court because they have my phone number. And I think that's really the difference. I can give my phone number out to a few people that will not spam it, but it only takes one person, maybe one of those cheaters I offended earlier, to take my phone number and make my life hell forever.
So would you like to give your phone number now?
Everyone can get my email address, which is plenty sufficient. So anyway, the role of all these guys is, close confidants and informers. I mean, these are people I can go to with stuff before I feel confident to take it to, the public and say, what do you guys think about this? much the way, government should work. It's like, well, I've got this crazy idea for tax reform, or I've got this crazy idea for clan management. What do you guys think? So we're going to be in close contact with them and other luminaries in the SOCOM community, not all of whom, need any sort of announcement. I mean, the NSA doesn't really go around broadcasting its activities, and some extent, we won't either.
Right.
But, for anybody who is thinking that, wow, okay, Turbine is like the only guy who's going to have a voice, is really not true. The system itself is predicated on everyone having a voice. And I think maybe not since, early Greece, when democracy was founded, are people going to have as much input and, the ability to influence through, thoughtful discourse how a game is developed and what the ultimate design is going to be. So, it's a grand experiment, and based on the way it's going so far, I predict really, really excellent results. And of course, the business side of things is, we love to have people like Luke and Turbine on board because they have a following, and, they can tell
Right.
people, right, I spent hours talking to Sears, and he's not totally, smoking dope. He actually knows what he's talking about, and he's, very concerned about making this happen the right way. I'm very concerned about making it happen the right way, and I want to recreate, the fun times I had, years ago in those early games, SOCOM. So, like-minded people flock together, and what we're seeing on Kickstarter right now is people who, have been passionate about, those designs that were SOCOM a long time ago. They have lit up. They're on fire. They are insane, and you guys, and I'm talking to you right now. It's amazing. So, of course, some people have a certain degree of notoriety or fame, and then there's everybody else who cares just as deeply about this kind of game and wants to see it be the best it can be. So they're all involved. I hope that answers the question. And as predicted, I did approach it very obliquely and hopefully made my point by the end.
One other person I'd recommend that you bring into your circle is, after spending a week with him at E3, is No Fear.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He was actually one of the original moderators on the original SOCOM forums.
Sweet. Okay. Well, that sounds awesome.
So,
every time you make a decision like, okay, Luke or Turbine, whoever is, you give them a sort of quasi-title. I know people could be offended because it's well, I care just as much, and I'm like, well, I know you do, but there's only so many people that I can jam into one office periodically. But my door is always open. My virtual door is always open. So do not hesitate to continue talking to me. I hope it's evident that I am definitely listening and very affected by everything people have to say.
Very good. All right, so we've had a lot of questions about controller customization, and I'm going to preface this with a young I guess he's still young gentleman. He's in his mid-20s that we met due to our event coming up in Chicago, the $15,000 Call of Poopy tournament. And he's a quadriplegic gamer. He's got MS. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. He has to lay down, and he plays with two fingers, his chin and his lips. That's how he mm-hmm. has to play shooters. And Trellis asked, as well as several people asked, about being able to customize their gun controls like we had in the original SOCOMs. The other thing they mentioned was using a sure shot control settings versus the precision setting, etc. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about let's talk about customizing controllers. And one thing, guys, in the chat I'm going to throw up is Trellis's fundraiser. He's raising money to come to the Chicago event. Absolute just crazy story about going to Quadriplegic Gamers is in one of my original clans. We had a guy named it was SO-CAL, SoCal. He played 100% with his mouth, and by far one of the best snipers I ever seen in my life in SOCOM. And he had a custom control made that he would move his lips and then blow air to shoot and stuff like that. So talk about custom controller customization and what your approach is on that.
Okay. Well, I've said this a lot. you know, I'm still using the same design philosophy and approach that I used with SOCOM, and you know, part of that came out of, you know, working with, you know, some really talented people who made me think deeply about game design. But I think the message should be coming out by now. I really want to give you the ability to customize your experience the way you want it to be. So controller customization, absolutely. You know, much the way we offered a set of presets in the early SOCOMs, you'll certainly have your choices there. A utility to allow you to configure the controller to be any kind of, you know, utilitarian or totally insane configuration. You know, I often have to make this point, though. You know, because we are indie, I can commit to giving you the features, perhaps. What is expensive in doing something like a controller configuration is not the code to support it. It's making it pretty through interface and feedback. Right. So you know, much the way I'm releasing art over time that, you know, isn't finished, you know, and optimized for the final game. You know, we may release features like the controller configuration that work perfectly fine and reliably, but aren't as pretty, right, as some of our interface. And I think people are going to be okay with that because they'd rather play the way they want.
Yeah, function's more important than looks.
Yeah, and I just, you know, say to the press, please don't take screenshots of our ugly interface. You know, take screenshots of people having fun. You know, hundreds of thousands of people playing online together with controller configurations that they wanted and made themselves. So, yeah, of course.
Great answer, and I'm sure Trellis, you'll be happy to hear that. He's a great guy. I'll introduce you sometime. Hopefully,
awesome.
We're working on getting you and Justin up to Chicago for the event.
Sweet.
So hopefully we'll have you
I
up
need
there.
a break.
You can play Call of Poopy and win some money.
No, not really. I mean, that's the thing. I want to be perfectly clear to everyone. I can design shooters pretty well. I'm not the best player, and you know, my reflexes aren't what they were 10 years ago when we were making SOCOM. So, you know, if I ever do meet you online, you're going to win.
I'm right there with you. I'll be the guy dying with you. I think my KDR is 0.03.
Oh, Lord.
It's all about the objectives, baby.
Team play.
There you go.
You need young people with good thumbs on your team.
And well, we'll leave it. Well, that brings me to a question that I'll answer for you.
Okay.
Someone asked, is there a way to filter out the squeaky voices of a 10-year-old? And my answer to that is puberty.
I was going to say good parenting, but if you watch Dr. Phil, we are at a crisis level in this country. No, kind of. I mean, it's just like you can just mute them,
yeah.
right?
So the mute button will be a necessity.
Yeah, again, it may not have the prettiest interface, but I'm all about letting you, shut people up.
Good answer.
Well, at the same time, I'm encouraging you to communicate in a civil and friendly manner.
All right, so let's talk about the ghillie suit level of customization you'll see and the level of customization you'll see with characters and weapons. What can we expect? Can we expect the ghillie suit? Because we joked about that in our video from E3 with No Fear about the passing of the save file so you could get the ghillie suit on SOCOM 2.
Yeah, the ghillie suit. Well, I can tell you when we do include it, it's going to look better than what we were able to do on the PlayStation 2 with that engine. The ghillie suit is actually, as much as people love it, I think it's highly underrated. It's actually quite good in urban environments. You lay down in a pile of trash and it's like you vanish. Someone was asking me about the nature of camouflage in H-Hour, and in the early SOCOMs we worked really, really hard, and I know everybody hated me on the team because I kept writing all these bugs about, hey, I'm in this corner, it should be dark, and it's not dark, it's fully lit, so fix it. And this shrub is not casting the shadow, and I'm not covered, and this cover has to be here. And it's really meticulous and time-consuming, but it's super important. So, customize characters, ghillie suit or desert camo in the city, it makes a difference, right?
Right.
And so I can tell you that I don't know if it's going to make its first appearance in the first release, but it's a perfect candidate for DLC. And I'd also like everyone to know that we're very committed to getting the nature of camouflage design, both on the character and in the world itself. We have to get that right. So there's going to be a lot of meaningful customization choices for the character, just on a visual nature. And it's surprising to me. Here I go. I'm ranting again. Talking to these young designers in the new generation, I try to explain how important this sort of cosmetic aesthetic is of character. And they're like, yeah, everybody just wants to customize your character and wear pink camo and blah blah blah. And
bacon.
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, no. It's. The ghillie suit can be used in an urban environment, so we're going to include areas of trash and shadow and weeds and this kind of stuff. And it's really important because you have to design not just for the system, but for the way people perceive the system when they're viewing it on screen. And it's different than your numbers. It's how does it look and how does it feel. So that's super important. Rant is over. You were asking about weapon customization. Yes. There's huge potential to make that super sexy, but as I've mentioned publicly before, we are inspired by authenticity and realism. Fun wins, but I do draw the line. No
bacon camo.
Well, maybe no, probably not. On the you could probably see some interesting paint jobs on weapons.
Right.
Customizing your weapons with tape and paint and that kind of stuff is actually a real thing that special forces guys do. I'm talking more about multi-round, high-speed shotguns with a scope and suppressor.
Right.
That's just out. I'm sorry. It's like
so it's going to be realistic.
It's certainly inspired by realism.
Right.
All the way from the ballistics model to our first range of weapons in our arsenal. It's like stuff people are really using, unfortunately, have to use to kill people.
Right.
For various reasons. You'll be able to customize those things, but it has to be plausible. It's like we're not a science fiction game. We're not a pulp fiction game. It's an authentic team-based military shooter. Don't expect shotguns with suppressors and flashlights, lasers, and scopes. It's just not going to happen. Sorry if I've crushed the dreams of tactical military shooter players out there.
So in your research, and I don't know how much involvement you had with or got to play with Ghost Recon while you're still at Ubisoft. Their customization. Weapons customization system.
Stunning. Crazy looking.
Crazy. That's a good way to put it. And they kept the attachments somewhat real. Like you said, you get the shotgun with a sniper scope and and all of that on it. So that's what I'd like to see. I know that kind of GUI obviously was a hell of a development.
Yeah, it was, and again, it's like any question you ask me is probably going to get a story as well as an answer. A friend of mine was the creative director on that project, Jason Vanderberg, and
I met Jason.
Who is an amazing designer and director, and has a vested interest in a high degree of realism and authenticity because he comes from a family with generations of military service. He's probably going to yell at me for talking about him, but I can sing Jason's praises. Whereas he really can't. When I saw the interface for that thing, I was like, okay, it's ridiculous. People are going to want it just because it looks so awesome. And that's a rule of design. People forget. Again, I'm talking to you, new generation of game designers. The interface itself should be a toy that is engaging and surprising and delightful and invites you to explore and return to it time and time again. Everybody knows I used to work at Ubisoft, and those guys get it. The best part of Splinter Cell, for all its many fine attributes and features and the great content, was the sound and the visual change on screen when you flipped into the NVG mode.
Right.
And my game was, well,